when you are given a function such as y equals into bracket x plus 2 raised to the power 9, you might want to expand this bracket and then differentiate the individual terms, which will take a very long time. So there's a better way to do such differentiation, and that is what we call the chain rule. What is the chain rule saying? The chain rule is saying that represent the inner bracket by a letter, okay? Any variable will do. So let u be equal to x plus 2, okay? The inner bracket, okay? Let u be equal to x plus 2, which would imply that your y is now, what is it, the inner bracket, which is u, okay? Raised to the power 9, okay? All right, so when you get this, we have a better way of differentiating called the chain rule. What does it say? It says that, so the chain rule, well, it says that dy dx is equal to, differentiate this, okay? So that will be dy with respect to u, so dy du, okay? And then multiply by the differential of the inner bracket, which is du dx, okay? I want you to pay attention to something. Always the du will line up diagonally, okay? Put this one in mind. It will line up diagonally. All right, so how do we solve such a thing? Already we said let x be this, okay? So this implies that du dx, that is, when we differentiate the x, it will give us 1, okay? But when you differentiate a constant, is 0. So 1 plus 0 is 1. Then we have y is equal to u raised to the power 9. So dy du would be equal to 9u raised to the power 8, okay? Because you subtract 1 from the power. So let's bring it down here and input into the formula. So your dy dx is dy du. What is dy du? That is 9u raised to the power 8. So 9u raised to the power 8 times du dx. What is du dx? That is 1. So times 1. And this will, 1 times 9 is still 9. So you have this. But don't stop here. Why? Because the question didn't come with u. You brought that definition, okay? So what is u? U is x plus 2. Therefore, you have 9 into bracket x plus 2, okay? Raised to the power 8, and you are done. So this is what chain rule is all about. So let's solve more questions and see how this is done. So the second example, so example 2. What do we have? We have y is equal to x, 2x plus 1 raised to the power 6 over 3, okay? So let u be equal to the inner bracket, okay? The inner bracket, which is 2x plus 1. This means that your y is now u raised to the power 6 over 3, okay? Now the formula says find dy du and then find du dx, okay? So let's start with du dx. So du dx, if you differentiate 2x, you get 2. Differentiate 1 is 0, so leave it like that. Differentiate y with respect to u, so you have dy du, okay? So this will be 6u raised to the power 5, okay, over 3. but 3 goes here once, goes here twice. So you have 2u raised to the power 5. By the chain rule, says dy dx is equal to dy du times du dx, okay? So what is dy du? Dy du, that is 2u raised to the power 5, okay? Times du dx. What is du dx? That is 2. 2 times 2. So 2 times 2, that is 4, okay? U raised to the power 5. But what is u? This is u, 2x plus 1. So we have 4 into bracket 2x plus 1 raised to the power 5. And you are done, okay? Let's see one more example where you wouldn't use the formula that we've been using, and then you also use the formula that we've been using, so that you can see that there are two ways of doing the same thing, okay? So in this example, we have y is equal to x squared plus 2 all raised to the power 4, okay? So let's start with the formula. The formula quotes dy dx is equal to dy du times du dx, okay? So let u be equal to x squared plus 2. Always u is equal to the inner bracket, okay? Now let's differentiate to find this part. So du dx would give you 2x, okay? Then y, if u is equal to this, it implies that y is u, which is the entire of this raised to the power 4. The formula says we should also differentiate y with respect to u. So we have dy du is equal to 4u raised to the power 3. That is when you subtract 1 from the power 4. Now you multiply this and that. That is what the formula is saying. So we have dy dx is equal to 4u raised to the power 3 times 2x, okay? So 2x times this will give you 8x u raised to the power 3, okay? But what is u? U is x squared plus 2. So 8 into bracket x squared plus 2 all raised to the power 3, okay? So this is the method of chain rule using this formula, okay? But there's another way whereby you don't need to quote this formula. What is that method? So same question, okay? Listen carefully to this approach. So this is the inner bracket, okay? And the entire thing is called the outer bracket, okay? So let's first differentiate the outer, okay? So that's what we will do. When we differentiate the outer, it is with respect to x. So we have dy dx. That would mean that the 4 will come here. So we have 4 into bracket x squared plus 2. Now you subtract 1, the normal differentiation rule, okay? So 4 comes down here, then you subtract 1 from the power. This is what you have. Then the second rule says differentiate the inner, okay? So the first is you differentiate the outer and you get this, and then you go ahead and differentiate the inner, okay? So dy dx, this is what we have as the outer, okay? So now we are going to differentiate the inner, okay? So, and then you multiply, okay? So let's just bring the multiplication sign. Now this is the inner. If you differentiate, you get 2x. Differentiate 2, that is 0, okay? Then you multiply. So 2 times this is 8, then you bring the x, then you have x squared plus 2 all raised to the power 3. So compare this to that. You see, it's the same answer. So when you are conversant with the rule of chain, you would come to understand that this is far better than even this. Well, if we're a formula person, then this is good for you. But if we're someone who might not remember the formula, use this approach. First, differentiate the outer, then you differentiate the inner and you multiply. Okay? So for the sake of simplicity, I'll solve one more example based on this approach. Okay? So let's call it example 2. We have y is equal to x squared minus 3x raised to the power 5. Okay? So we have something like this. We are going to use this approach. First, we are going to differentiate the outer. Okay? So differentiate the outer. So dy dx will be equal to, so the 5 will come down. So we have 5. Then you have x squared minus 3x. Subtract 1 from 5, we are left with 4. 2, let's go and differentiate the inner. So let's call it differentiate the inner. Okay? So that would mean that you have dy dx, okay? So the inner, only the inner. So this will be 2x minus 3, okay? Now multiply your answers. So multiply 1 and 2, okay? Okay, so you are going to multiply 1 and 2. So this is 1, this is 2. So dy dx is equal to what you have here, which is 5 into bracket x squared minus 3x raised to the power 4 times the inner, which you got 2x minus 3, okay? So dy dx would be equal to, now you have this times that, okay? So just write 5, 2x minus 3, x squared minus 3x raised to the power 4, okay? You can leave it like this, or you can expand, but leave it like this, which is better. Because when you expand, it's going to be a lot of terms. This is better. Leave it like this.